Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars on what is going to be a miserable, muggy, and shitty hot Florida May morning. I know it is because it was yesterday and it will be tomorrow and it will be for the next 8 months. That's how long it's going to take for the weather to turn again. It's only getting worse from here. We're on it's just a rise from miserable to extremely miserable to you got to be friggin' kidding me, and that is where we're at right now, and it's coming, and I'm not looking forward to even the month and a half that I'll probably still be here. And the fact that I'm walking away from this, at least for the bulk of the year, is what brings us to this whole video to begin with. So I've been on Twitter for about a week talking about this. When I got back from I know I haven't done a video in a while. Well, there's a reason for it. It turns out that uprooting your life to move is a pretty big process. And, I've been going through that and finding the surprises along the way, including surprises that are self-inflicted, like this camper. I bought a house up there. I'm going to Murphy, North Carolina. Penelope talked me into it. I was going to somewhere else, but she decided Murphy. I won't get into why, but there are reasons and they're nefarious. But we ended up in Murphy, so I bought a place. I'm remodeling it a little bit because if I don't, I never will. That's at least the bill of goods that she sold me, and it's probably true. So I thought, okay, look, I'm going to buy a camper. The place has an RV port of sorts next to the house. I'm going to buy a camper. I have to be up there this summer, obviously. The remodel probably won't be done, so I'm going to park this thing next to the house, and I'm going to live in it. In better weather. And yeah, I know it does get hot there. Here's the difference, man. There's no hope here, okay? None. Zero hope. It is going to be hot, tropical, and friggin' miserable. Up there, you might get that for a week, but then there's going to be a week of decent weather. Plus, I've got a little bit of elevation, so we'll see. That's the hope anyway. Maybe somebody will beat it out of me. Maybe Murphy will beat it out of me. We'll find out. But I'm going up there on a wing and a prayer with that in mind. So I'm going to live in this thing. And my plan originally was to get an Airstream, something in the 22 to 25 foot range, older, so I didn't have to spend a fortune, which I don't have, and it would retain its value. I would live in it for, maybe 6 months, maybe more, and then when I went to sell it at the end of it all, it would be worth what I paid. Well, you see, that's where Penelope comes in, and I'm on one of her compounds now. She's got many of them. But Penelope is not what I would call the most spendacious person around. In fact, she kind of likes to save a few bucks, to the point of, lunacy. And I went looking on a site called Proxy Bid and found this trailer at a repossession auction in Tuscaloosa. And this was the question I posed on Twitter, by the way, was, if a friend came to you, a good friend, and one you didn't hate, which I don't know if I have, maybe I have one or two of those. I'll have to check the list. A friend you didn't hate came to you and said, hey, I have an idea that I'm going to pull off. I'm going to go to a repo auction in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to buy a travel trailer, going to drive up there. I'm going to hop in it, sight unseen, drive it 5 hours to Murphy, North Carolina, park it at a campsite, and live in it for a week. Okay, what do you say to that friend? There's really only one obvious answer, and that answer is, you know what, friend, that's a really fucking terrible idea. I mean, that could be the worst idea that I've ever heard. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. This is not what I got. This is not the response I got. It'll be an adventure. They said it'll be fun. Oh my God, I wish I was going. Well, yeah, it'll be great fun. Well, it wasn't great fun. And I'm going to get into why here. And there are going to be some repercussions on this, and we're going to name names, and we're going to call out what's what and who's who. But before I do that, I have to give you a very quick Chris update. You know, I have the feeling that I'm moving to North Carolina almost just to get away from, just for a brief time. I don't know if I can take much more of it being around him. And I'll give you a perfect example. And this was another one that I discussed over on X. So if you're not over there, by the way, give it a shot. I'm interacting. It's fun. It's not political. And I'm having a great time. But and it's cathartic, honestly, because I'm able to get a lot of this shit out of myself that would otherwise fester and cause medical problems. But, you know, the day I get back, I go to the shop the next day, and Chris is there. You know, he kind of moved in while he was away, getting worked. He and Robert the German going around shirtless in the back. It was revolting. Absolutely revolting. And, you know, I mean, I don't know what I was eating, like a granola bar or something with chocolate on it. And I get this big lecture from him about, you know, what his dietitian has been saying. Dietitian. I mean, it's like Orson Welles telling you he has a dietitian. You know, that's already offensive. But apparently the dietitian has told him that he wants a low ingredient count and a lack of processed foods. And I felt chastised for what I was eating at the time. Well, the next day, Chris is back, and he brings with him this giant bag of Culver's, you know, like the Glutton Man chicken tender combo with double cheese curds and a Dr. Pepper or Coke or something. I mean, it's like none of the conversation the day before it even happened. He had zero sense of irony, no sense of shame. And that maybe is his biggest problem. And then he dips it all in tartar sauce. Tartar sauce. There's no seafood on the plate. Tartar sauce specifically is for seafood, in my opinion. And I think that's another poll that I'm going to run on Twitter here over the next couple of days, is to find other people's opinion on it, because I don't believe it. I think he's like one of 12,000 people who would even consider eating tartar sauce when there's no seafood around. And I think he was dipping the cheese curds in it, for Christ's sake. And this is what absolutely infuriates me, is this complete lack of self-awareness on his hypocrisy. I mean, he's like an enormous round glass showcase of the very worst human qualities. The worst, all on display. I mean, like with neon backlighting on display. And somehow it all works for him, even with so few redeeming qualities. And, you know, he ends up with a thin, pretty wife who has a great job and supports him, a loving son who, you know, hangs on his every word, and a very, very flexible work schedule, which is to say none at all. And somehow his bloated ego informs him that this is all deserved. And it just drives me up the wall. And that's, you know, when you come on the videos, you're like, why the hell is this nitwit talking about anything but what he's reviewing? It's because this is cathartic for me. If I don't get this crap out, if I don't get it out, I'm going to end up with arthritis, gout, you know, God knows what. It's going to have to come out some other way. So it's just better for me to talk about it. And it does help quite a bit, as it does with the weather. Anyway, I'm going to carry on, because this is not going to be one of these 50-minute videos. I just want to get this done, name the names, and move on. So, look, a real quick history. If you go back, camping started in the modern, obviously they were camping, you know, back when nature was still killing everybody, but, you know, back in the caveman days, everyone was camping. You get into the modern era, sort of modern camping started maybe around the turn of the century. And, you know, like rich guys had these fancy horse-drawn wagons with living quarters in them, and they would, you know, gallop around their area, camping with their families and doing what they had to do. Then the car came out, and then that changed. So all of a sudden people are towing these things behind their cars, kind of the way that we are now, but very, very rudimentary. I mean, you're talking about basically little tents on wheels, you know, maybe with a little cooking stove or something. You know, carry on. Now you've got the Depression. All of a sudden people have to start sort of living as they're camping because there's no money to go around. So, you know, camping and trailering became kind of an institution in America at that point. You had the ones doing it for fun, and then the ones doing it because they kind of had to. Get to the post-war boom. Now you've got Airstream, which came out in 31, I believe, and Winnebago in 38. They start mass producing these things. People start, hooking them up to their trucks and towing them around the country. And sort of the modern American recreational vehicle thing is born. And that's where we are. And I like the idea of it. There's no question about that. I like living in a camper. Somebody chastised me for, oh, I lived in a camper, and there you are complaining. Well, I'm not complaining about living in the friggin' camper, man. I'm complaining about how it went down. And that's what I'm going to talk to today. But, through all the variations of camping, from the horse-drawn carriages until now, some things have remained constant. And I would say those things are war with your family or whoever you happen to be camping with. War with what the hell was that? War with the mechanical issues on the camper and whatever's towing it, or if they're all in one. And war with traffic, war with insects in nature, which of course wants you dead. God damn, where is that? We just had a bear attack in Naples. First one in Florida, I believe, where a bear mauled someone to death. I just hope that wasn't, I guess it's that bird. It probably isn't a bear, but you never know. Anyway, so, the misery of camping has long been part of it, intermingled with a few nice little bits where you get a good view and, kind of have some fun. So, anyway, we're going to look. So I'm moving up there. I decide I'm going to get a camper. I find this thing. It's cheap. I'm thinking, man, I could save some money. Penelope is encouraging me to save some money. My other friends tell me it's an adventure. So I hop in the truck and I start heading up to Tuscaloosa, which you can't get there from here, man. There's no good road to Tuscaloosa. You get as far as, I don't even know where the hell it was. I went down I-10 for a long way. That was the last of the highways. And then it was sort of a bunch of surface roads and, weird roads till I got to Tuscaloosa, which seemed to add a long time to the trip. But I was excited, and I checked into a motel that night and, could barely sleep. And then in the morning, I ran over to this auction. I'm going on the pictures that I saw of this thing on Proxy Bid. I get into the auction, I pay for the thing, or at least give them the paperwork. I'd already wired the money. They're very quick to want their money, obviously. And go out, put the truck up to it, go inside, and it just cannot be the vehicle that was in the photos. There's no possible way. I've been selling stuff on Bring a Trailer lately, just say, well, I got to find a way to get income. And I've got some buddies down here who, know people and want their cars sold and don't want to do it themselves. So I jump in, and that's sort of the way I've been making an income. I want whoever photographed this camper to take all my pictures on Bring a Trailer, because I thought I was going into something that was, needed a little wipe down. Maybe it even hadn't been lived in that much. Maybe. Well, it had. So I opened the door. Thank God that I had COVID, back when COVID was around, and it wiped out my sense of smell. That's all I can say, or at least wiped it out 80%, because I have a feeling that might have been the end of it right there. Well, actually, you know what? It might have been better. Might have saved me the trouble, but I didn't smell anything, terrible, just a residue. Looked inside the thing, saw that it was an absolute friggin' nightmare, closed the door, hooked up the camper, and drove to Murphy. 5 hours, and I was flying. I had to get to the campsite before 5. The nav said I'd arrive there at 4:51, so I was absolutely hauling ass. Didn't think about it, nothing. No a little bit of safety, but very little. Made it there. And then in my mind, having made that 5-hour trip, I thought, okay, the structure's good on this thing. The tires are good. The brakes are good. I don't have to worry about that. All I have to do is worry about what's inside. So I drove to Walmart after pulling through the campsite and setting up. In a bizarre panic, I must have bought $370 worth of cleaning supplies. I mean, I am talking gallons of bleach, fantastic, Tilex, Spick and Span, magic erasers, sponges, both, scratchy and non-scratchy. You name it. I bought a shocking amount of cleaning items on Walmart. And I came back to the camper and I started cleaning. And that was at about maybe, let's say 6 p.m. on Thursday night. At 6:30 a.m. Friday morning, I finished just the surface clean, just enough to be able to be inside of it. That's what it took. So a little over 12 hours of scrubbing, and now I could sort of stand in it without being absolutely horrified. I bought a mattress in a box. God thank them for taking whatever mattress was in this thing out of it. It probably looked like a murder scene, something from Silence of the Lambs. And I unfurled it. Of course, I got the wrong friggin' size. I got a queen, and I needed some kind of queen light, but least of my worries. And that thing started inflating. And I managed to get a few troubled hours of sleep before I, went back and started doing the deep clean inside. And man, so here's some of the shit that I have learned. Okay, first of all, this camper was not owned by some sort of wealthy Asian surgeon who never used it. It was owned by some sort of 30 to 50-year-old female meth head, okay? And not only was she running some sort of a meth lab out of this thing, she obviously had some sort of pit bull rescue going on at the same time. I have never seen, and I'm allergic to dogs, by the way. I have dogs, but, we kept the short-haired variety. These were some kind of bizarre long-haired pit bulls she was breeding or having. And the fascinating thing about the 3 that she owned personally and the 9 that lived in the camper along with her were those 3 had won first, second, and third in an international shedding competition. No question. They swept it. They absolutely swept it. I could have woven a blanket out of the hair that was floating around. Man, I pulled up the sleeper sofa and oh God, sorry, I'm getting one of those flashbacks now. But anyway, and I found several long blonde hairs with purple dye on them. I found cigarette burns and then other burn. Look, I've smoked 40 years and I've been sloppy time to time and I've burned something. Well, they don't look like these burns. These are weird little pinhole burns that I didn't recognize at all, which makes me think something else was going on in here altogether. And, as I removed the toilet at 4 a.m. to clean underneath it, the amount of hatred in my soul, the amount of, how could not a single friend have said, what are you thinking? What, never mind the mechanical things, you don't know what, who's lived in it. Well, I can tell you who's lived in it, and they weren't the kind of people you want to hang out with. So there is a bright side. One of the bright sides is that I now have a very enviable collection of roach legs. I pressed them in a book like flowers. Just the legs. That's the weird part. Well, that's not true. Actually, after all this big cleanup, I've now found one roach dead inside the thing, but I think that was inside the stairs and came out after I was driving home. We'll get into that in a minute. But mostly just roach legs. And I think when these repos go to that auction, they put in the same insecticide inside, like the Navy uses, to clean up their destroyer holds or something, and blast out all the poop tanks. And, thank God they do it. Thank God they do it, because honestly, after seeing all the legs, every time I was inside, when I like a hair itched on my legs, I was leapt through the ceiling. I mean, it was just not a pleasant thing, and it's only now just beginning to fade a little bit. But I mean, there is not a part inside this thing that has not seen bleach. I bleached the USB ports, okay? I mean, there is nothing that has not been either removed and disinfected or bleached, and I had to do all this just to be inside. And I did it with so much hatred in my heart, man. So much hatred. I just going through the list in my head of the people who had the opportunity to stop me and did not. I could have spent like $1,800 more and just bought a used one at an RV place and been fine, that had already been cleaned up. I mean, I've worked too hard in my life for this, to clean up after a meth lab / pit bull rescue. And there was some sort of used squeeze bottle of some that I took out of the bathroom cabinet. I don't know what it was for or what it was meant to be put in and squeezed, but I had to deal with that with gloves on, and I saw things and I smelled things even through the COVID decline, and things that will affect me and crush my soul for life. I will never, ever, ever unforget or unsee or unsmell these things. And removing the toilet at 4 a.m. sort of was the crescendo of all this and what I saw underneath. And anyway, I'm going to pause there for a minute and then come back. We'll hop inside this thing, get it over with, and move on. But I am telling you right now, when I move up to Murphy, when I go up there, I have no friends. I have no friends. All right, so look, let's just get back to this thing and finish it so I can get this out of my system and move on. This has been festering in me, absolutely festering. One of the reasons I went for this trailer, by the way, instead of another one that they had sitting there, is the other one had a replacement door, apparently. It was the same camper, basically, but had a white door, which was clearly a replacement. A second reason I went for this, it has no slides, and the RV port that I have up there is very, very narrow. It's certainly not anything you could use for a campsite. You're just going to be barely able to get the door open. And I couldn't have a slide. Obviously, you don't want to stay in one with the slides drawn in. Plus, slides are unreliable, I hear. People tell me a lot of things. But so it was, this seemed perfect. And it popped up late in the auction. I thought it went too cheap. Honestly, a little bit. And that phenomenon has happened to me at auctions before, where you buy something either online and, well, not either, online, or you're there at the auction and you see a giant turd that sells online and you think, oh, that poor bastard. Wait till he shows up and gets that thing or sees it shipped to him. He's going to freak out. Well, I had that little moment of hesitation when I won it for a price probably $2,000 less than I thought I'd have to pay. And it was the last one going through, and oh man, maybe they, people were buying them. They already bought other ones, there just wasn't enough buyer. I got a great, no, I did not. The people there were chortling, thinking about the poor bastard who was going to come up and get in this thing. So anyway, let's go inside for a minute. Oh, God, this is really bringing back some bad thoughts. Okay, so here are the stairs. They are quite beefy. They didn't look like that when I first pulled them down. I had to pressure wash the entire outside, Yeah, I won't get into it. But here we go. So I walked into this thing. Right now, it's a little bit clean because, again, I've been cleaning the hell out of it I was supposed to be working on the house. Instead, I worked on the trailer for the entire week just to get it to where I could be inside the damn thing. Now that it's clean, it started to grow on me a little bit. Let me see if I can get lights on in here. Yeah, there we go. It's got all these lights up there. So here's the mattress. Here's the bed that I thought was a queen, but is apparently short. So it has some sort of an overhang here. And if you get too far towards the side, you start to fall down. I still have the 38 by the bedside. I forgot to remove that. There's some USB ports with a missing device of some variety. But in these modern trailers, you do get a lot of space, which is nice. You got places. I still haven't worked up the courage to hang anything in the closets yet because, again, I cleaned them and I know how they looked. But maybe someday I will. And up here, same thing. You get all this sort of nice little storage area. I had that old Holiday Rambler camper, which was great for the day, but this one, after the cleaning, has been a lot more enjoyable. You do have this couch that folds out, so you got another place to sleep there. This is where all the dog hair had come. It was actually level with this cushion and thick all the way down. I must have emptied the shop vac I bought at Walmart like 32 times. This was something I bought for the trip, for not just the campsite, but for the truck as well. Because I found out that if I'm like 5 minutes outside of town and try to put something in navigation or whatnot, I probably don't even have a signal. not even enough of a cellular signal to connect to nav. So I went to Starlink, and I'm going to get shit for that because Twitter, X, and Starlink. And I bought this little mini thing with like a $50 plan. Really much more affordable than I thought. And it has these little suction cup thingies I bought at Amazon that'll put it up to the bottom of the sunroof. And you can run it into your cigarette lighter or the 110 outlet. And boom, you got mobile, internet, which worked actually really well for me, both at the campsite and driving around. Here's where the trouble really starts. What the hell is this now? What is this disgusting thing? Oh, God, everything I look at now is, here's one of the, man, I set up 92 bug bombs inside, like 32 odor releasers. I just didn't stop. But anyway, we keep, because you got curtains there if you want to pull a curtain over and, hide your bizarre, trysts on a campsite with your wife while the kids are in the bunk bed. That could be a little friggin' weird. Hopefully your wife. You can see all the crap that I stuffed up there. More crap up here. And I mean, I am telling you, man, all of this, the vents, these speakers, the lights, the roof, everything got absolutely covered in bleach because it had to. The one thing that I haven't really done yet are these curtains. I shudder to think what's being kept inside of them, what kind of DNA. But I've now bought a steam cleaner, and when I tow this thing to the shop later, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Had to buy a fridge. Yeah. Got one there, but had to buy this one at Walmart because, as it is, the fridge wasn't working. Neither was the air conditioning. Fortunately, it was pretty nice up there. It got 75, 80 during the day, a couple days, which was a little bit much. But at night, 50s, high 40s, perfect. Opened the windows, which was good for airing it out anyway. And, there it is. Fridge, could never get it to work. It weighs 100 pounds. Obviously, someone's yanked it out before. And this was the kind of crap that's all missing from the auction pictures. Like these... it had some trim here, obviously. Somebody's jammed on it. They crushed the bottom of it, pulling it out. And maybe they couldn't get it to work. Hopefully I can. But somehow they concealed all of that. Under this fridge is a spot in the hole where the floor is missing. That's why there's a rug down there. It's been cut out in a square, probably by the auction to remove God knows what. All the little chips and... shit on the side. I had to replace the, whatever the hell this is, the faucet. It was missing this little pull thing. And then when you did turn it on, it just poured water out like Niagara Falls, which has, caused water damage now on this, whatever the hell you call it, the countertops and whatnot. It also has some weird covering of this cutting board sink cover thing. Oh, God, thank God. I can't believe I just opened a compartment without wearing a glove, because God knows what could have been under there. But you see, look, you got like 2 110 outlets there. You've got, there. Look at this thing. Look at this friggin' thing. Hello. Keep going. These things came in the other day. They honk like Volkswagen Beetles. They're terrifying. Look at that shit on their heads. Go on. Go on now. Whatever the hell you are. Go maul something. God. Yeah. Anyway. All right. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. I cleaned the range, the gook, the grime, the disgust that was underneath it. The oven underneath I've cleaned as well. God knows how many pizza rolls were baked in that thing. The microwave, that took an incredible amount of scrubbing, as did these. And here's another thing that was missing from the, let me zoom out a little bit. You get in here, look, yeah. Okay, now I could have made a cigarette burn like that. That's not the issue. Or the other 800 of them on this table. Okay, but it's all the little bitty ones that were on the floor and on the table that make me think that it was just not tobacco being smoked in here. Not to mention the purple hair and the dog hair, or purple. Yeah, it just, there's another burn over there. More there. Okay, so I removed these cushions. I brought them over to the laundromat at the campsite and washed them 7 times in the hottest water they had. So, I can actually say, man, you should have seen, I think 2 of the pit bulls sat here, another one here, and then the broad who owned the thing there. And there was just poop crust in all the fucking bottoms of the seats and hairs sticking out of them. And anyway, it got all, it's good that I'm a proper detailer. If I'd left this to Dalton, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. It had these bunk beds. When I pulled them up, I think there was some sort of a repaired leak that this thing had. I say repaired because it rained up there and it all stayed dry in here. But when I lifted these mattresses up, there was crust and fungus underneath, like water had drained through. So I had to remove the covers from these mattresses, wash them 7 times in hot water, drench the foam mattresses in Lysol, and let them air outside in the sun for a couple of days before I felt good about putting them back in. I also crawled inside and wiped down every wall, those USB ports, the window, the vents, everything with bleach. The bathroom is where the nightmares happened for me. I mean, the floor of the bathroom did not appear to be wood anymore. There's even cigarette burns or God knows what kind of burns in here, by the way. So they were smoking while they were pooping. The shower was full of horrible stuff. It had to be all cleaned up, wiped down. The cabinets apparently was a place where the auction had forgotten. And down in here is where I found that very suspect-looking squeeze bottle. There was also a link on the toilet, so I had to learn how to use this shit called PEX to fix it, which I did. But of course, that required, $200 worth of friggin' tools from the Lowe's up the street. And then when I went to fill up or connect the water to the RV, it came shooting out the water heater up front because they had pulled the drain plug. And that took me a few minutes to figure out. But then, sure enough, the water did fire up. And I was able to, take my first shower the next day. But that bathroom and removing that toilet, these are things I don't want to discuss. And the fridge, I'm not even going to get into. That's the heater down there under the couch. When you turn that on, it's propane. It shoots out air, and it works pretty good. I got a subwoofer up here. This is a thermostat I had to replace. And, this was, again, the kind of trip this was. The thermostat was deemed bad, so I put in a new one, made the air come on now, which it didn't do anything before I did this. But it still didn't have enough... It still didn't get cold. So I have multiple independent failures, which tells you a lot about the condition of this thing when I got it. I had a guy come out called Dr. Cool, and he was. And he ended up putting some sort of Pierce valve on the AC and charge. It's a Band-Aid, but it got me going. And there's nice cold air. This is a TV mount. Of course, didn't come with the TV, so I bought one and bought the mounts for it on Amazon, and you can hang it here in little TV. It also has the same mount outside. But this is getting into, again, why I kind of like the thing. So you got AC outlets there, you got your mount there, you got more AC outlets here. It has a fairly modern Bluetooth type setup radio with, this is a sub and, a couple speakers, and it connected easily to the TV. I put in these leveler things, but how would you know, I went with the lines of this, hoping that that's level. But how would you really know? So I may be setting it up to be, not level. But I honestly, I don't friggin' care. There's this control thing. It has an electric awning, which I have zip tied because the luck that I was having, I figured the awning would fly off on the interstate and kill a family of 5 and I'd be sued. So I zip tied it. I'll retract it when I get to the shop later, take a photo of it. Water heater. Let's see if I turn that on. Let's see if it goes. Okay. So now when I walk around, we should hear... Oh, no, I have the propane turned off, and I'm not going to turn the damn thing on, so the hell with it. You know how it works if you're a camper person. But anyway, that's it. So, this entire inside of this RV has been painstakingly soaked and drenched in bleach. Down to under the sofa, under these seats, tables removed, bud bunks, everything removed. I don't know what's behind the fridge because I haven't removed that yet, but, I've got a hazmat suit at work I intend to wear. And anyway, that's the inside of the RV. I bought that pillow at Walmart, so there you go. A nice little addition to the couch. Down the stairs, and this was something that I saw when I lifted them up the first time. And in fact, I probably will. Yeah, there's some sort of horrible insect activity inside of this, and I need to get down there with a better vac and the hazmat suit to blow it out. But I think when I closed those back in, the day that I was driving back, that's where that nasty last bug came from. I hope so, because seeing it has now made it so it's going to be tough to be inside again for a while. You do have a little screen door. For some reason, this stupid thing is bent and never gets back into place right. But I do like it. It works. There's a little part I missed, amazingly. I didn't pressure wash that. I should have. But, man, I'm going to pause for a minute, do one last quick walk around of the outside to point out what happened on the ride home, and then I'm out of here. Keep going. Keep going. There's another one lingering. I'm sure of it right back here. Go on. Go on now. Go on. Cha-cha-cha-cha. All right, so let me blast through the last of this just to get it done and move on and get it out of my soul. So look, the week goes by. I get the thing cleaned up enough to live in it. It's fine. I'm now leaving. It's last Sunday. Penelope also has bought a place up there, although, of course, it's in her style, much grander and much more difficult than the place I bought. But so she's up there, but she's also leaving Sunday. So it makes good sense to, convoy home, right? Yeah, that's the plan. Convoy home, piece of cake. Call her up the night before, and I'm like, hey, I know you're taking off. I'm taking off. Let's convoy together. She said, yeah, okay, let's leave at 4. I'm like, man, that's a little early for me. I like to sleep. My plan was to leave, at 5. Can I wake up at 4? Can we do it that way instead? Nah, I really want to leave at 4. And I go, okay, well, how about, 4:30? Let's do that, because you want the safety, man. I haven't towed this thing 12 hours before, and it's not. Okay, yeah, 4:30. So I get a text the next morning at 4:10, say, okay, I'm driving by the campsite now. You ready to go? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not ready to go, because it's 4:10. It's not 4:30 when I would be ready to go. And they said, well, can you get ready? No, have a nice trip. So off she went. Great, wonderful airplanes. Off she went. I got the truck, ready. I did the hell with it. And I took off alone at 5, instead of 4:30, which was her plan anyway, and started the trip. And the first thing I'm going to point out is you look at the wheels and tires on this thing and you say, wow, it's a pretty modern look. You'd think they'd have put some of those cheesy Chinese alloys on it or something. Well, they did. They did. And one by one, they started exploding on the ride home. Even though and this had given me a false sense of security going from Tuscaloosa to Murphy, that the tires were fine. And I guess I didn't look at them hard. Someone on X said they call them China bombs, so that's great. And that is what happened to me. So the first time it blew, it was actually on the other side, the road side of the trailer, and I got over as far as I could. In fact, you see I have a black one. That's the one Amazon spare I brought with me, was the black rim tire. And people seem to make a game out of it on the interstate to see just how close they could get to a guy changing the tire while going about 105. And that went on, and that was great. So I got the tire on. Penelope came up with this great idea to buy these ramp things. Let me see if I can see one in here. Yeah, this yellow ramp, which you pull the trailer onto on the side of the road. And, brilliant. No issue at all, except on this trailer, it gets just high enough to not be free of the ground. So I had to go back and I put a 2x4 under it, put it back up again. Now it was free. Now I grab my impact, which it turns out that impact gun might have got wounded from all the years of racing. at Sebring doing the tires, and it could not break the frozen lug nuts loose. So now I had to back the friggin' thing back down onto the ground so I could break it free with a breaker bar, which I had to dig out of the tool bed of the truck, way up in the front of it. Broke it free, changed the tire, and now I've got, 4 tires on the truck, one blown out, one in the trunk, and no spares. So I Googled Tractor Supply, thinking on Sunday that's the only place I'll get a tire, which it was, and there was one 10 minutes away in the direction I was going. Go to that Tractor Supply. They have one tire, one wheel and tire left in my size for $180. I had paid like $90 for the one from Amazon. So I'm not cheap, but that's just usury. And I bought it, and I put it in the truck, and off I went. Well, I made it to North Tampa before I had another explosion. And the reason I knew they were exploding, by the way, is I put tire pressure monitors on it to be able to tell me that, which, may have helped things a lot and may not, who knows. But anyway, so I pulled over. Fortunately, it was on this side now, not the roadside. So it was just me and the red ants changing the tires together, having a lot of fun doing it. And so now I've got 2 new, 2 old, no spares. It's about 5 o'clock, 5:30. Google Tractor Supply. There's one about 30 minutes back. So I go 30 minutes back into the Tractor Supply parking lot, and I buy yet another spare for $180. So I'm now into this for like almost $400. Put it inside the truck and think, man, I have 2.5 hours left of driving. If I blow another tire within the space of 10 minutes, which I'm likely to do, not to mention all the, little cosmetic damage it's doing when they catastrophically explode, I get dents. I need to just change these tires. Go back into Tractor Supply, buy my 3rd spare. I now have about $600 in this crap, and change the last 2 tires in the Rural King. Wish I'd found a Rural King. It would have been cheaper, but in the Tractor Supply parking lot, well, they looked at me like I was some kind of, meth head on the road. Well, fuck them. But anyway, so I changed it. So now it has 4 new tires on it and a couple of really wounded spares inside. And I took off, and that's why it looks the way it does. Since then, I've ordered the 4. I've always liked Kumho trailer tires since I stumbled on them accidentally. So I've now ordered 4 of those that are going back on the alloy rims. I'll have 4 steel spares, which frankly I'm going to take with me now, even if I have to strap them to the roof or this big cargo thing in the back. The camera thing was nice, but I had to order that from I had to order the screen from Amazon because it obviously was no longer inside. This is odd. So they love pets at the Cherokee family, and that's why they have a place for you to chain your pet up at the back of the RV where you're sure to forget it, National Lampoon Vacation style, and drag the poor thing down the road for as long as it can keep up. Anyway, the storage in the back is nice. You can see the damage that was done when these are steel treads. These aren't even the stupid cheap stuff they have. So that's the steel treads from the tire when it exploded. I don't want to leave it in Penelope's yard. So. Oh, God, I can't wait to get out of here. The under storage is neat. I like it. Big, goes all the way across. You can see I have a lot of crap in there, roaches. It also has solar panels, which apparently had failed. You can see one up top there. And when I put the voltmeter, I found out it was feeding the battery with like 22 volts. I'm sure this is what fried the fridge and the AC. You can't do that. That's just too many damn volts to get fed through the whole thing. So I had to remove that. I've ordered a new solar controller, and that's got to be installed. Those are the propane tanks, which actually worked fine. There was no issue there. There's the battery. There's where I zinged in a range extender for the tire pressure monitors. This is an anti-sway controller that Penelope talked me into buying. I'm glad I did because it actually works pretty damn well. You tighten the crap out of it. It's not really the directions. They say tighten the crap and then back it off. Well, I find it works better if you just tighten the crap and leave it. But that definitely made the thing more stable, and that might have helped me from killing a family of 5 on the ride home when all the tires blew. So either way, that was a nice setup. And more airplanes. So there's the gray wolf, limited. Not exactly how I see myself. I have one decal now on the side for Murphy. They're teaching you how you're supposed to do all this. Well, here's the one that I have, and hopefully it's the last one. And I guess this is a door handle to help you get in and out of the camper. Anyway, I've probably forgotten a dozen parts of this horror story, but I'm not going to bore you with any more of them, other than to say it was a terrible friggin' idea, and any good friend would have told me so. And quite frankly, that's why I'm going up with a clean slate. As far as I'm concerned, I am friendless and have to start over. So thank you very much for having a look. You know what? I'll give you one more quick thing. We're going to hop in the truck. Let me fire it up and show you how that works. I added a CB because I thought maybe, that might help me on the road. Well, it made no difference. All the truckers are Lithuanian now or something. You can't understand anything anyone's saying. I just ran it through the top. Had to have an ashtray out there. All the nervous smoking. Fire this thing up. Yeah, trailer connected. Great fun. Here's the tire minder thing. You turn that on, and eventually, it's not going to connect that fast, but get the AC turned down. It's already hot. It'll start connecting at some point, and hopefully, and and then after the tires started blowing, man, I was watching this thing like it was unbelievable. Oh, well, what are the temperatures? I started obsessing over it, and it's just no way to be. You got a trailer brake here, fortunately, which you need. You can see output 4.5. Over here is this little camera thing, which never worked, by the way. Didn't work once. Now all of a sudden it's working constantly. So I have no idea why that would be. What would be, and now it's not working again. I have video to prove it, but I looked them up on the web. They work 1 every 7 times, apparently. Turn this on. Maybe that'll help. Oh yeah, okay, so we got it. So there's the reverse cameras. It's back, gone. All right, leave it gone. Here's the CB. Here's a light. Keep a little Ruger there in case of problems, and of course have the radar and camera ready to go. This is some sort of controller for the air helper springs, and this is the garage door I forgot to the place up there. There, you got one tire at 60. Anyway, that's it. So thank you guys very much for having a look. This is the rig, and for the moment, I'm going to keep it and go with the plan. But I can tell you, this has been life-changing. Okay, there are things that have changed and will never go back to the way they were. And maybe it's for the best, maybe it's not, but that's the way it is. Thank you for watching, listening, appreciate it, and we will see you with the next one. Hope to have another car pretty soon. Take care.